about these lifetime issues. And then as the manager of my own hedge fund, Cramer, Berkowitz and Company. I've had a long love affair with stocks, but stocks are only one of many tools, albeit the most important one, that we're going to use to create lasting prosperity for you and your family. I know better than most people the difference between having money and not having it, or having it and having a whole lot of it. I'm a self-made multi-millionaire, and I'm going to share with you the lifelong disciplines that made me rich and have kept me that way. As I said, I made my own money. I've also been poor. In fact, I wasn't just poor, I was homeless and destitute. In 1978, I spent 6 months living in the back seat of my Ford Fairmont while I worked as a homicide reporter for the Los Angeles Herald-Examiner, unable even to afford rent money. By 1979, I had moved up in the world. I was living in the most spacious corner of my big sister's studio apartment in New York City. I was the last person in the world anyone was ever going to ask for financial advice. But even then, I was diligent and self-disciplined about money. I may have skimped on the auto insurance and skipped on the rent, but I still put $50 a month into the best mutual fund I could find, Fidelity's Magellan Fund. Living out of my car with barely enough money to get by convinced me that I had to become rich, that no amount of money was too much, and that I would have to do it with more than just my meager paycheck. I would have to parlay that paycheck into something much bigger, using whatever financial resources I could get my hands on. I spent 20 years single-mindedly pursuing greater and greater sums of money, until well past the point where more money made a bit of difference. I know it's possible for anyone to get rich and stay rich, because I did it myself, and I'm no different from any of you. Like most things in life, getting rich and staying that way takes a lot of hard work, a lot of knowledge, and a little bit of good advice. There are many ways to get your hands on a whole lot of money, though few of them can be called easy. You can invest in the right stocks, get a high-paying job, start your own business, or inherit the money, to name just a few. But there's only one way to make sure your newfound wealth leads to long-term prosperity. You have to use your money to make more money. And you need to do it the right way. It's hard work and it takes diligence. But in this audio program, I've already done a lot of the work for you. For most people, there are few things that are more confusing and frustrating than trying to manage their finances. I can't tell you how many people I've spoken to who agonize over trying to pick the right mutual fund and end up giving up, their money still in a checking account, because the decision was too hard and reliable information was too scarce. If you're looking for a financial plan, it's easy to get a broad outline, but very hard to find anyone who will give you specific, detailed advice. But that's exactly what I'm going to do. Others are more than willing to show you the forest, save money, pay off your credit card debt, contribute to your 401k, start an IRA. But no one will identify the trees where the money is actually grown. How should you manage your IRA? What specifically should you own in your retirement and discretionary accounts? Which of the most popular mutual funds available in your 401k plan is the best place to put your money? I'll even recommend the best mutual funds, using all the data available as I record this audiobook. Too many books about money go wrong because they try to offer timeless advice. There's no such thing as great timeless advice. The really useful financial information is time sensitive. When I select the best actively managed funds, I am choosing the best mutual funds that you should invest in today. Sure, I've got plenty of things to say that will still be true 100 years from now, when these mutual funds likely will no longer even exist. I'll explain everything you might need to know about creating wealth, from the day you're born until the day you decide you have enough dough. That means you'll hear some things in this audiobook that you've heard before. I'm going to tell you to save money to invest in your company's 401k, if it has one, to start an IRA, and all the other nothing but good advice. The difference between this audio and all the others that have been recorded about personal finance is that I don't stop there. I don't think it's helpful to tell people to start an IRA without telling them how to manage it and giving them some specific ideas about what to buy for it. Nuts and bolts that will make you more money than the other guys, because that's what I was put on earth to do. If you're looking to build your wealth over the long term, to ensure prosperity for yourself and your family, then stick with me, and I'll teach you how to get rich, stay rich, and stay mad for life.
Hey, what's going on, guys? Javon Harley with Yourhealthco, providing you some knowledge on my travels, great information from Jim Cramer.
Financial security, as long as they work hard, save, and manage their money wisely. All of us have the opportunity to become fabulously wealthy. You just have to know what to do and how to do it, which is something most advisors neglect to discuss. The vast majority of our children are financially illiterate when they graduate from high school, and no better educated about money after going through college. I'm not talking about anything complicated here. I'm saying that most of us have never been taught the difference between a stock and a bond. That you know what to do, and just as important, why you're doing it. Building self-sustaining wealth is not particularly difficult, nor does it require more than a modest amount of willpower. Everyone knows that saving is supremely important, that it comes first, that without it you can't invest. And if you can't invest, your odds of getting rich fall through the floor. If you save merely 5% to 10% of your annual income every year from the time you start working until your retirement, and you invest that money wisely, or just not foolishly, you won't have to worry about money for most of your adult life. This is an important point to consider, even if it is a cliche. It takes money to make money. Truer words were never spoken. It's why the rich always seem to get richer, and why it feels like everyone else manages only to tread water. As long as you rely on your job alone for income, you're not really building prosperity. You have to save. If you don't save some of your income in order to invest it, all bets are off. You can't count on getting rich or even retiring without savings. But it's important to view money saved as more than money in the bank. It's money that you can use to generate wealth. Someone who earns millions of dollars a year and spends it all will be just as broke come retirement as everyone else who didn't set money aside, no matter how low their salary. Here is the key to establishing lasting prosperity. Save your money and invest it in the right assets at the right times. There's nothing original about this view, nothing new, but I have many different and, yes, better twists on the old rules that make them understandable and downright enjoyable to apply.
Hello. Thank you guys for coming in. Just a little audio lesson today. Javon Harley with Yourhealthco, coming to you live with some good information from my man Jim Cramer.
Ally, perhaps the greatest of the individual investor looking to establish long-term prosperity. But it's true. If you haven't been introduced to the concept of compound interest, it's a testament to the idea that little things here and there eventually add up to something substantial. Here's how compound interest works. You deposit money in a bank at a 4% rate, and every year the interest compounds, meaning you receive your interest payments from the bank, and the bank starts paying interest on what had been its interest payment, in addition to the interest it pays on your deposit. Of course, compounding works for you in many more situations than that. For example, from January 1970 to December 2006, the average compounded rate of return, including reinvestment of dividends, for the Standard & Poor's 500 was 11.5%. The S&P 500 is the most representative index of large cap American companies, encompassing all the large publicly traded companies in the country, and is frequently used as a stand-in for the market when judging the performance of mutual funds or investors. It's the benchmark all professional investors measure themselves against. If we assume that for 35 years an investor compounded at only 10% annually behind the S&P 500, we're looking at someone who made a great deal of money. If you were to begin with merely $2,000 and every year add an additional $2,000, you would have more than $652,000 at the end of 35 years. Back in the 1970s, $2,000 was a lot of money. But $652,000 is nothing to look down on today, especially on a $72,000 investment. If you went the extra mile and invested $4,000 at the beginning and added another $4,000 every year, you would have $1,304,916.97 after 35 years. At that point, you could retire, put your $1.3 million in U.S. Treasury bonds that yield roughly 5% annually, and earn close to the median salary among Americans over the age of 44, $66,995. All of that because you use your money to make money. And that was with a conservative rate of return that lagged the S&P 500. If you had simply bought an S&P 500 mutual fund, a fund with very low fees that buys all the stocks in the index and holds them, you would have done even better. And these kinds of funds are easy to find. Every mutual fund family has them. This scenario is a bit unrealistic because as most people get older, they shift their investments away from stocks, which would return about 10% annually, and toward bonds, which would have produced a lower but more consistent rate of return. I am a believer that such a switch shouldn't happen until much later in life than most of the financial planners and so-called wise men out there suggest. But I'll take that up later in this audio. The on your side as a long-term investor, it's not all that difficult to really profit wildly. And I want you in on those profits big time. Later, I'll go into more detail about the appropriate distribution of your capital among stocks, bonds, real estate, and other potential investments. Don't worry, it sounds scary, but I've traded them all, invented a lot of them, and can tell you in actual English, not Wall Street gibberish, what they mean and how to use them to make you even richer than you thought you could be. I want to help people at every level of skill and education to sustain and increase their wealth. Capital, by the way, is just another way of describing the money you invest. The word actually can refer to any form of wealth that is used to produce more wealth. The strategy I'm going to teach you is a combination of capital preservation, which is an investment strategy where you try to avoid losses above all else, and capital appreciation, where your first priority is to increase the value of your assets. Everyone should always have both preservation and appreciation in mind, but at any given time, one will be more important than the other. It's very important that you pursue capital preservation when times are tough for the stock market, because taking the risk necessary for capital growth will most likely result in capital shrinkage. In a bad market, it's easier for ordinary investors to lose money than it is to make money. So your goal should be to avoid taking losses. That way, when the market improves and you make capital appreciation your number one priority, you have more capital to work with, and thus will make more money. I really worry that most people who manage their own money don't do this. I constantly hear people say that preservation of capital is their top priority all the time, or appreciation of capital is always more important. That's wrong. You might have a bias one way or the other, but there are times when caring more about preservation will mean missing out on big gains. and other times when a strategy focused on appreciation will tend to cause big